What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does, because the government makes the rules. We have to live by those rules, so we need to know what those rules are, why they're making these rules in the first place. Like, what are they doing with our money? Why are they doing that with our money? We also love to counter the mainstream narrative machine's narrative, right? The corporate press is lying to you constantly. They frame these stories in such a way to promote left-wing bias. Really bad. We covered that yesterday. NPR, that one of their editors came out and was like, yes, they are very left-wing biased, heavy bias to the left. And he wrote a whole hit piece and he published it, and the communists immediately came out and was like, no, we're not biased at all. But, I think I proved otherwise just from the story that I read out. But, I'm not trying to harp on all that. Let's get into the story, because this is a good one, y'all. Senate Democrats open to Speaker Johnson's foreign aid plan, but landmines loom. Right? Speaker Johnson has been an absolute disappointment, y'all. Like, this guy was a straight-up conservative. I watched a lot of him in House Judiciary Committee hearings. He was a hawk, right? Like, he was really good on the House Judiciary Committee. I liked him. Like, he said a lot of stuff. He went after the people he needed to go after. And like I said, he said a lot of things that were very conservative that a Republican should get up and stand up for, right? Like, we all thought he was going to do pretty damn good. And he's done a couple of things that were conservative. But for the most part, he's capitulated to the left. I don't know why. I don't know what they've got over his head. It's like they brought him into a room and threatened his life or something if you don't vote in a certain way, right? Like, if you don't push these certain narratives, because he's totally turned on a dime, totally 180. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie both have wrote up a motion to vacate, right? Oh, and here we go with the mainstream narrative machine coming out. Oh, we're going to chaos again. The chaotic Republican Party, right? And they call them hard right. No, they're not hard right. Right? Like, Johnson promised several things that he would do and wouldn't do, and he has violated every single one of those promises. Like, what do you do when somebody breaks a promise? You get mad and you bitch at them, right? But in a situation like this, if you got an employee that says they're going to do something, then they do the opposite, what do? You fire that employee. You don't congratulate them. Right? Like, so I don't know why the mainstream narrative machine is so against this, right? Like, everybody, the people, should be like, yes, this is a good thing. Oust him. Get him out of there. He's lied to the American people. Like I said, he turned completely 180 on a dime. Now he's pushing all the left-wing talking points. Just blows my freaking mind. But let's get into the story. Senate Democrats say they're open to the possibility of backing the foreign aid proposal emerging from the House, even as they raise concerns about potential landmines in Speaker Mike Johnson's plan. Democrats and a number of Senate Republicans have loudly called for Johnson to take up the national security supplemental that passed the upper chamber with a wide bipartisan vote 2 months ago, saying it would be the fastest way to get aid to allies like Ukraine and Israel. And once again, there's no plan here, right? Like, why are we so invested in Ukraine? I understand Israel to an extent, right? But once again, I've also said we don't need to be involved with that. Israel is perfectly capable of handling themselves. They've been doing a very good job of killing civilians, right? Like, that's my main criticism, is they don't seem to care if they kill civilians or not. Right, like that whole killing of those 7 aid workers the other day, or a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry. That was targeted. That was 3 strikes in 3 different places, killing 7 different aid workers and injuring several other people. Right, like, that couldn't have been an accident. You can't make 3 separate strikes at the same time an accident. Logic doesn't work that way. Statistics don't work that way either. I mean, sure, there's a very, very super slim possibility that was an accident. But, who actually believes that was an accident? But another thing, like with Ukraine, like we've got all these people getting behind saying, cheering yay for Ukraine because evil Putin invaded, right? Like, why do we care so much about Ukraine? And then on top of that, I voice my opinion about this, right? Like saying that Putin is evil, and why are we helping a very corrupt nation? And then people call me a Russian troll for that for some reason, right? Like, Putin is an evil dictator. What else do you want me to say? Just because I'm not backing Ukraine? See, that's the leftist worldview that if you're not with us, you're against us, right? There is no middle ground. These people don't care about anybody else's opinion, right? Like, they don't want to argue their viewpoints. They don't want to argue logic. They don't have facts on their side. So what do? They just start name calling. Oh, you're a bigot. You're a racist. You're a Russian troll, for God's sakes, right? Like, they get up there and they won't listen to logic, like I said, at all. But yet, they seem to care less that we're sending billions and billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund a war. Right? Like, these people, at the same time, they gripe and bitch at the military-industrial complex, right? Like, large corporations that all they do is kill people, but yet at the same time, they want to fund Ukraine. That makes no logical sense, you guys. In case any of you Ukraine hawks are out there listening, if you don't like the military-industrial complex, and you do want to send money and fund a war in Ukraine, your viewpoint on that makes absolutely zero sense. None whatsoever. Prove me wrong down in the comments section, but I promise you won't be able to prove me wrong because those two things don't go together. That's like saying you're a Christian and yet a woman should have the right to kill their baby at any point during their pregnancy. Those two things don't go together. That's like saying, yes, I'm a Christian and I love God, but the devil is my friend. Those two things don't go together. But let's keep going. But Johnson, who is facing a right-wing mutiny and a threat of being removed via a motion to vacate this week, announced his own blueprint, right? We don't know what that blueprint is, by the way. Democrats are by no means ecstatic about Johnson's maneuver, but they seem prepared to accept it to help Kyiv's beleaguered forces, right? Like, who really cares? Right? Like, I want to put a stop to this war. As a matter of fact, for all you people out there who want to call me a Russian troll, I'm a Putin propagandist. No. I want to stop this war. Right? Like, I want them to send some negotiators to negotiate peace. How about a ceasefire? That would be a great start. I don't want to fund a war so they can just kill each other. I've made the analogy in the past. Normal people, right, people in their right minds, don't see two people fighting and you just go and jump in, two people you don't know. You don't go jump in because the other guy started it. Right? Like, no, people don't do that. Normal people in the right state of mind will go over there and try to stop it, or they'll call the police and get the police to go over there and try to stop the fight. Right? They don't go and get in a crowd and say, yeah, and they don't jump in and start beating up the person that started the fight. That doesn't happen. That's not a normal thing to do. So why are we doing this when it comes to human lives? Right? Like, people are dying, and you got these idiots in the United States want to send money to help a country kill other soldiers. Right? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why not advocate for stopping the war? But nobody can ever answer that question. They don't want to stop the war. They want to fund the military-industrial complex that they so-called hate so much, right? But that's what they're saying. They want to fund the military-industrial complex because if we do pass that aid bill, that $60 billion, $40 billion of that is going to go to the military-industrial complex to make bullets and tank shells and all this other stuff, so we can send a little bit of that over there to Ukraine to pay the pensions of nurses and doctors, police officers, firefighters. Like, why are we paying the pensions and we can't help the homeless people here in this country? Nobody can answer that question either. Nothing that goes on in the House makes any sense. Senator Elizabeth Warren said. But if that's a way that the speaker is going to get aid to Ukraine in front of the House members, who by a large majority would support it, then okay. But get it done fast. Ukraine is running out of ammunition, Warren continued. But they can never explain where the end game is here, right? Like, they seem to think that Ukraine can somehow beat and drive out Russia, right? Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to run out of people well before that happens. So that's what anybody out there who advocates for sending money to Ukraine, you're advocating to kill all of the Ukrainian soldiers. That's what you're advocating for, right? Like, I know a lot of people could say, yeah, they don't care if Russian soldiers die, which, you know, that's a weird take. Like, you don't care about human lives, but, you know, whatever. But you're also advocating for this country that you seem to love so much. You are advocating to kill all of their soldiers, because that's what's going to happen if they continue to fight. They are going to run out of people to fight eventually, because Russia's not going to capitulate, right? Like, they're not doing bad. They're not being hurt by the sanctions that we have placed on them. China is helping out. Iran is helping them out. As a matter of fact, India is helping them out. So they are not hurting at all. The ruble is up. Once again, they are not slowing down whatsoever. So us continuing to send our U.S. taxpayer dollars over there to fund essentially a money pit that has dead bodies inside of it is outright insane to me. Like, these people are just going absolutely crazy, right? Like, oh, and I'm a Russian troll and a Putin propagandist if I don't want to send money to help people kill each other. That makes no logical sense, by the way. In case you don't know what logic is, it's a rational thought process that most people use to make decisions on a day-to-day basis. But these people don't seem to do it. They see what's going on. Oh, this is what the politicians are saying. Yeah, let's go ahead and get behind that and just, blah, 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 blah. Let's just go ahead and spout these talking points and spout this nonsense as if it makes sense. As if as if they're the good side, right? Like, they're on the right side of history to advocate for war. No, you're not. Sorry. He proposed individual bills to give aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, with a fourth aimed at banning TikTok that could include a potpourri of GOP-backed ways to pay for the Ukraine aid. All of those would be passed one by one in the chamber before being bundled and sent to the Senate as one larger item. The text of the four bills hadn't been released as part of prime time, but a number of items are already concerning Senate Democrats. Headlining that list is the possible minimization of humanitarian aid assistance for Gaza and other hotspots around the world. The legislation the Senate passed in February gave $9.2 billion for food, medical supplies, and other humanitarian aid for Gaza, Ukraine, and other affected areas. Democrats on Tuesday indicated a cut to that number could force them to spurt the House's offer. That would be an enormous problem for our conference, Senator Martin Heinrich told The Hill. Humanitarian assistance is a real deal breaker, I would think. Another big potential concern for Democrats and some Republicans is the possibility of reducing the total amount of Ukraine aid from the $60 billion the Senate allocated. Top backers of Kyiv are quick to note that the country is running toward empty on ammunition and is being forced to ration bullets and other war materials to keep up the fight against Russia. That was on display last week as Ukraine was unable to stop an airstrike by Russian forces that destroyed the biggest power plant in the greater Kyiv region. Do you see what they're trying to do? And this is the game that the corporate press and the politicians play, right? Like, oh, because we haven't been sending money to Ukraine, oh, that allowed some missiles to get through, right? Don't blame Putin for this. Blame yourselves because we didn't send enough money to help Ukraine. It's emotional arguments that make no logical sense, y'all. Right? Like, don't blame the person actually responsible for this, right? And there is an argument to be made that NATO is responsible for this. You know, we can get into that in a later date or down in the comment section if you would like. But, you know, don't blame them. Let's tug on the heartstrings of the American people and get them to back genocide, essentially, because that's what it is. They're killing each other. They're genociding each other for no apparent reason over a tiny strip of land. And that's what we're supposed to be all happy and go lucky for? Sending our hard-earned tax dollars to go fund a tiny strip of land? I'm sorry, I can't back that at all. And these people, by the way, are absolutely deranged, because they will get in and sit there and spit out all these stats about Ukraine and Israel and all this other stuff, but they don't know anything of what's going on in India. Right? They won't say anything about the genocide going on in China with the Uyghur Muslims. They don't talk about all the wars and all the BS in Africa either. They're not deranged about those. They don't even know some of this stuff is going on. But they're so involved with Ukraine for some reason. Like, why? Oh, that's because that's what the politician told them to think. Right? Like, these people just are like NPCs or something. They're just mindless drones that the politician tells them to do something, or the corporate press tells them to think a certain way, and so that's what they do. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Russia fired 11 missiles toward the Trypleska power plant, with Ukrainian air defenses downing the first 7. The rest ultimately destroyed the plant. Why? Because we had 0 missiles. We ran out of missiles, Zelensky told PBS NewsHour earlier this week. Once again, playing on your emotions like, okay, so, you know what? If they wouldn't have sacked the first set of negotiations that happened a few months after this war started, if they would have come to some sort of agreement, that wouldn't have happened. Blame your United States government and the UK government, blame NATO for anything that happened after that, because they could have negotiated some sort of peace. But no, what did they say? We're going to fight Russia to the bloody end. Notice what I said there. They said, we are going to fight Russia until the bloody end. The United States, the UK, NATO is not at war with Russia. We are not in Ukraine. They said we, as if Ukraine is part of NATO, as if Ukraine is part of the United States. It's not. That is a very corrupt nation that, another talking point, we need to save democracy, right? But hang on, Ukraine's not a freaking democracy. That's been proven outright several times, because they don't have free press. They don't have First Amendment rights. They don't have freedom of religion, right? Like, they consolidated all their media into one state-run media that pumps out propaganda constantly, right? Like, they are banning Christian Orthodox churches. What democracy do you know? Let me know in the comment section. What democracy do you know that does that? And what country do you know that bans Christian churches that we should get behind and fund war to allow them to kill each other? What country should we do that with? None. None whatsoever. Say what you want about this situation, right? You can sit there and bitch and moan about, oh, well, Putin's an evil dictator. Yeah, I'll agree with you totally. Putin is an evil dictator. But that doesn't mean you have to be behind Ukraine, that you want to fund the war, right? Like, why are they not trying to stop it? I will say that once again until people understand that I just want war to stop. And the fact that they're not trying to stop the war, they're trying to continue the war, tells me that there's something else afoot here that I can't obviously see. They're either just corrupt and want to line their own pockets and fund the military-industrial complex, which, Occam's razor says that's the most likely outcome, that's all they're doing it for, is to line their own freaking pockets, and they're making you believe that this is some sort of movement that you should get behind, y'all. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and agree with lining your own pockets, Mr. Politician. No, I don't agree with that. I try to look at things logically, and I don't see any logic to sending money to Ukraine. I beg and plead for somebody to please let me know down in the comments if there is a good logical reason why we should send another $60 billion to Ukraine. I'd really love to know that, but I've been asking that question ever since this war started, and I've never gotten a good answer. Everybody always just starts calling me a Putin propagandist or a Russian troll, right? As if that's going to change my mind or something, or as if that's going to make the war stop, or as if that's not our U.S. taxpayer dollars still going to fund a war, right? Like, how does that help? That's being very reductive. That's just an idiot that doesn't know any better, right? So I can't get mad at these people, but I can't complain about it, because I would really love for some of these people to give me a good answer, please. Somebody give me a good answer. That's all I got for this one, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Do you think that breaking up these bills, having an individual Ukraine bill, I think that's a good idea, but I don't think it's going to pass. I don't think we need to fund these things. But, once again, if I'm being unbiased here, that's a good way to get a vote on these bills, right? That it really is a good idea. I don't personally like it, but if I'm going to be unbiased, yeah, that's a good way to do it. That's how I think all the government appropriations should go. They shouldn't consolidate all these bills like they do, because lawmakers just throw in random BS earmarks that only do one thing, and it's help themselves and doesn't help the U.S. taxpayer. And that pisses me off. But like I said, you guys, y'all are the best out there. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. I'd love to hear from y'all. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it, you guys. Like I said, y'all the best out there. Y'all are great. And y'all keep them comments coming. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.